Clear Voices of Hope is a powerful collection of voices from For the Love of Cups, Clear Pathways program, dedicated to raising awareness about the realities of dense breast tissue and breast cancer. Through honest conversations and personal stories, we amplify the voices of women who have faced these challenges firsthand, sharing their journeys, fears, triumphs, and lessons learned along the way. Each episode brings you closer to the lived experiences of survivors, advocates, and caregivers, while also featuring leading experts in breast health and women's health. Together, we break down the barriers, provide vital education, and empower listeners to make informed decisions about their own breast health. Whether you're navigating your own diagnosis, supporting a loved one, or passionate about women's health equity, Clear Voices of Hope is your source for real stories, reliable information, and a supportive community. Join us as we shine a light on the path to early detection, better care, and hope for every woman. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. I couldn't be more honored, humbled, and excited to introduce our next guest to you. Her name is Christine Handy. She is a breast cancer survivor, author of Walk Beside Me, and producer of a new film called Hello Beautiful. It is such a pleasure to have her here today to share her story of grit, of perseverance, her real life experiences of being diagnosed with breast cancer, but also the truth of what's behind coming through and surviving a diagnosis like that and being able to show up in your life, having been through something like that, and how we use that experience to and provide us with more courage, more boldness, more steadfastness, more hope, and more joy. I think what you will find in this episode is a really powerful message of hope and courage. And so I'm really excited to introduce her to you today. She's somebody I've been following for a while. Can't wait to watch the film. I will leave the link to it in the show notes. You can go check on it, add it to your watch list, and dive into this interview and really just take some time to experience her story. Give yourself a moment to drop in, grab a cup of tea, because I know this is going to be really good and juicy. You're going to come away with so many tidbits of impact and service and just nourishment for yourself, for your heart and your mind and your soul. So Christine Handy, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here. I would love for you to take a moment to introduce yourself and just let our listeners know sort of where you are out in the world and how you ended up here.
Well, that was a great intro. Thank you. You're a great speaker. My name is Christine Handy. I did write a book called Walk Beside Me after my diagnosis with breast cancer, which, like you, Lisa, came out of nowhere. I was 41 years young with no family history of the disease and also dense breasts, which at the time didn't mean anything at all to me because nobody had given me a warning that was something to be concerned about. After that, I wrote my book about Walk Beside Me, which was bought to be a film in 2018. And like most projects, they take decades. And this one
Yeah.
years. My project was filmed in 2024 in Boston, Massachusetts, and the movie is coming out hopefully this spring. We've won 8 awards worldwide in film
Wow.
festivals. We did the film festival circuit. And really, it's just an adaptation of my film. And the reason I wrote the book as well as the movie is because I didn't see enough survivor stories. When we are diagnosed with an illness, typically people seek out other stories. And because stories, they give truth, right? We can Google an
Yeah.
illness and read scientific information on it, but stories tell us like what happens after you get adriamycin chemotherapy, what happens after you get 28 rounds, what happens during the off time when you're not able to get chemotherapy and things like that. And so when I was seeking out stories, I found very beautiful Hollywood movies that were fear-based. They started
Mm.
with diagnosis and ended in a funeral, and I had righteous anger about that. I
Oh,
thought
yes.
I thought this isn't very nice to be showing this hopeless scenario to people that are being diagnosed. So I thought, well, if I can get enough courage and write the book and ultimately fight to get the movie made, then maybe I could be showing courage on a bigger platform and showing survivorship in a space that really needs it right now.
Ooh, wow. There's so many things there that I love about this. You're absolutely right. You noticed a miss in the market, but also just for survivors, right? Those resources, those stories, this perception of what's really happening. I know that was a deep craving that I had after I got diagnosed, even though I had my mom who'd also been diagnosed and had been through this. I really wanted stories from other survivors. I really wanted to know what they were really going through, what how they were getting through it, right? And so I think those conversations are critical to figuring out how to navigate this. And of course, ones of hope, because that's the first thing you think of when you hear you have a diagnosis is like, oh my gosh, like what does this mean for me? Does how does this affect my quality of life and my lifespan for that matter? Am I going to come through to the other side, and who will I be on the other side of this?
Exactly.
Yeah, really incredible. And so I wonder what that was like for you navigating this, deciding to write this book and discovering who you were going to be on the other side of this.
Well, it's funny because I just listened to myself, say all those things, and those are lofty goals, right? And that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of grit and grace and persistent. But 90% of the time, it's not fun. It's not, of course, during my trauma with my diagnosis, I went through 28 rounds of chemo. I've lost count at how many surgeries and complications. I had implants, I had revision surgeries, and ultimately lost my implants because I had breast implant illness. And so the obstacles were enormous. But even through those obstacles, I was always trying to figure out, okay, what is my value? What is my worth? And it's obviously not that I have chest or no chest. That's not my value. That's not my worth. My worth is what how I feel about myself. It's not
Mm,
what how other people feel about me or how other people view me. I'll give you a very small example. Yesterday was World Cancer Day, and there's a lot of people posting about World Cancer Day, which I completely respect. There's no judgment. I chose not to post anything on World Cancer Day. My my job, in my opinion, as a hope facilitator, to show
mhm,
survivorship, to show courage in a journey, in an illness journey, regardless of what type of cancer or if it's cancer at all, is not to kind of I'm not looking for the glory. I'm not looking for, the it's not for self. And so when I chose not to post anything, somebody had, or a few people had messaged me on socials and said, why aren't you posting? And I said, listen, you do you. I'm going to
mhm,
do me. I'm going to give hope out every single day of my life until I'm not here anymore. But that doesn't involve posting on Snickers Day. That doesn't involve posting on Umbrella Day. That doesn't, I mean, I, I,
mm.
I can post what I want to post
Yeah,
and maybe I'm going to post on Cancer Day next year. I don't know if I feel like it, right? We're in different I'm gonna stay in my box, and
yeah,
everybody can stay in their box. But there's just this all of this judgment about illness. There's all this judgment about, what we show on social media, and it's kind of exhausting. So I try not
mm,
to get into that sort of muck, but I don't wanna dismiss. There's no dismissal of the pain and devastation of a diagnosis in my book. There's no devastation in any talks that I ever have about what I went through. There's no
mm,
dismissal about anybody's journey. There's no competition. There's no
mm,
there's no competition in illness.
mhm. Yeah,
And but it's how we react to pain that dictates our life. It's how I
yeah,
reacted to my illness. It's how I reacted to my implants being taken away,
mm,
extract. It's how I
yeah,
reacted to waking up with a concave chest. It's not
yeah,
flat, it's concave. And so, the example there is when I did wake up with a concave chest, my first
mm,
reaction wasn't, "Oh, I've gotta go partner with Victoria's Secret and go back to modeling." I'd been a
right,
model for 30 years before I was diagnosed with cancer. And
yeah,
when my chest was extracted, I didn't say, "Oh gosh, I really need to use this to help other people." I was
yeah.
emotionally paralyzed. I was
Ugh,
flat on my back, like, "How am I gonna move forward? This is rough. This is
yeah,
mentally rough." And I had a really good self-esteem. And I
Yeah.
was rooted in faith. Like, you can't take my self-esteem, you can't take my worth, because if it's rooted in faith, nobody can take that from you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was planted.
Mm.
And even to be planted and to have resources and a community and a job and, I had what a lot of people would say was a pretty stable foundation,
Yeah.
and I was rocked.
Yeah.
But it was months later, after I had done the introspective work about how I was going to react to that new reality, right? I was
Mm.
permanently gonna have a concave chest. That was my
Mm.
reality. It was how I reacted to that ultimately that dictated my life. I ultimately went back to modeling. I partnered with Victoria's Secret as a breastless model. I walked on the runway in New York Fashion Week, I don't know how many
Mm.
times. I I was 50 years old and went back and modeled at Miami Swim Week in a bikini with a concave chest.
Mm.
That was my reaction to a concave chest. But
Mm.
I was also my reaction to a concave chest was the devastation and the emotional
Yeah.
paralysis. Those things existed, right?
Yeah.
But when time goes by, when time goes on, you if you stay in that emotional paralysis, you're not
Yeah.
helping yourself and you're not helping other people. So you gotta
Mhm.
dig your way out of that emotional paralysis and figure out, okay, what do I wanna do with this pain? Do I
Yeah.
wanna stay angry? Do I wanna hurt myself or other people? Of course not.
Yeah.
How can I use this for good? But that's really the mental gymnastics you have to go through.
Yeah.
What I've done with every single setback. How can I use this with purpose? How can I use this
Mm.
to help other people? What can I use with this emotional paralysis that
Mhm.
it doesn't feel very good? How can I cushion other people's blows so they don't feel this bad?
Yeah. Oh, you bring up so many important things, and I think one of them is actually to let yourself feel the grief and the pain of it, and maybe even some of the anger and the disbelief around it. And
Yes.
give yourself time to do that without dismissing it, like you said, but then also finding ways to use it so that you don't stay paralyzed by it. I
Right.
don't know that it goes away completely ever, right? But we're using it, right? It's almost fuel. It's
Yeah.
almost like the gas in the fire that keeps you going is that, you want to soften the blow for other people, and that it's also part of your story. And I think that what you're sharing is really important. Okay, of course, nobody chooses to get breast cancer, and beyond that, you were hoping for a reconstruction. You, I'm sure, had many surgeries on that path, and then ultimately for several reasons, I'm sure the breast implant illness and, other factors, I'm sure, contributed to the fact that you weren't able to have that reconstruction, um, for a very long period of time and have the flat closure, which that's a whole 'nother devastation to go through, right, with identity, body identity, especially as a model who's seen as a certain way, but, as a woman, getting just used to seeing yourself in the mirror, um, and wondering if you can find your femininity or whatever you wanna call it, your womanhood, your femininity, your connection to self, and still feel valuable and still feel worthy of being on a runway because that was something you'd always done, something you'd always enjoyed, something you were passionate about, and something you were good at, right? So, still feeling worthy of that, especially in an area that is so aesthetically driven typically, um,
Yes.
I just find that remarkable, that you found the courage to put yourself out there again, and I know that it's changing lives, but I'm curious, what that journey was like for you in that in that reconciliation of letting yourself now be seen in this way. Now, I mean, there's the personal acceptance, but then there's the courage to put yourself out there again.
Well, and it's a tricky subject because a lot of people who get aesthetic flat closure, right? And I mean, that's their
Yeah,
choice. And people sometimes people assume that about me. They say, "Oh, Christine Handy, she got aesthetic flat closure." I really didn't.
yeah,
And I did have implants for 7 years. And I don't necessarily want to belabor this particular part of my journey, but this did lead me back to modeling. I'd written
Mhm.
the book after my diagnosis. I was living a full life. I became a public speaker. I became a social media influencer. My book was bought to be a film. My life was moving, you know, in a good direction. I was happy. And then all of a sudden, the breast implant illness happened, and it really was a setback. But going back to how I navigated that, I leaned on what I had learned with my diagnosis. And what I learned with my diagnosis was you can take away my hair, you can take away my natural breasts, you can take away my job, right? As a
Mhm.
model. I was 90 pounds wet when I was going through chemotherapy, not a hair on my head or my body. And so I obviously wasn't working as a model. I was sick for months and months. And I realized then that all the women that were showing up for me, they weren't showing up for the model. They weren't showing up for the girl that had hair. They weren't showing up for the girl that had her natural breasts. They were showing up for me, the person
Mm.
inside. And
Yeah.
and they were showing me their courage. They were showing me their faith. And so when I went through years later, 7 years later, the breast implant illness and the excavation of my chest, I was like, my body, my soul, my identity is not tethered to whether I have implants or not.
Mhm.
That's nothing to do with my worth. And so I leaned into the courage that they had showed me, and I decided, well, I'm going to use that courage to show other people. Because
Mhm.
at that point, I had a social media following, and I'd gotten messages from people saying, how could I wear such a tight shirt and feel so comfortable? And I thought
Mhm.
to myself, well, I don't want to cover me up. I mean, I'm whole.
Yeah.
Regardless if I'm missing body parts, I am whole because my foundation was different. I was
Yeah.
foundationally rooted in faith. Nobody can take that away.
Mhm.
You can take away, you can lose money, you can go through divorce, you can be sick, you can lose your hair, you can lose your breasts. You can't take away somebody's self-worth, somebody's self-esteem, or their foundation in faith. It can't be
Mhm.
taken. And so it's what you build your life on. I mean, if you build your life relationally and those relationships go away, that's going to be challenging, right? That's kind of quicksand.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I tell people a lot. You have to figure out what you're saying to yourself. You have to figure out how you feel about yourself inside of your head. That's the most important thing. If you think you're worthy, that's truth. If you don't think you're worthy, figure out why you think that and go back and fix that. Spend a lot of
Mm.
time fixing that because we age, relationships can change, right? Kids
Mm.
move out of the house.
Mhm.
I mean, you got to figure out you. That's your job.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think your story's really powerful for many reasons. Anybody going sort of through an identity shift or identity crisis almost.
Yes.
And so many things can trigger that. Like you said, relationships, kids moving out, midlife, job change, career loss. There's so many transitions that we go through over a lifetime, and holding that steadfast courage to get us through that. I wonder what you would say to somebody going through a situation like that right now. And I'm sure that some of these messages are in the movie, but I was sitting with my mom last night preparing to interview you, and we were watching, some of the trailer from the movie, and just the amount of conversations that we were able to spark from that, and the relatability that we found there. And so I'm just wondering if you can share some of the themes that are coming through from the movie that you're putting out that people could maybe, relate to in that way.
Well, I mean, I think you would understand this more than most. Illness is a family disease, right? Any illness,
Yeah.
like it affects everybody in the family. It doesn't just affect the person that has the illness. And I think
Yeah.
that's not talked about enough and it's overlooked.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
so
Yeah.
we do show in the movie a lot of the dysfunction that happened when the main character was diagnosed with breast cancer. Suddenly her job stopped, right? Her children shifted for sure. Well, everybody's role shifts, right? The
Mhm.
husband's role shifts. He's now more of the caretaker of the children in the movie, and I'm talking about my situation. Because if
Right.
I couldn't show up for my children because I was barely hanging on, not emotionally, physically. I went through 28 rounds of chemo.
Yeah.
Then somebody's got to take care of the kids. And so that, the husband's job might change and things like that. So it is a family disease, and so we do show that. But we also show many arcs of the healing that can go on. Because everything's exposed. It's like a nerve ending. Like you bring in trauma and illness and like all the chaos in the family, it's all amplified.
Mhm.
Everything is shown. And so we show like chaos happen in the family, but then we show how people can heal. Like how
Mm.
people can not just survive it, but they can lean into trying to understand each other's role in the family, which looks different, right? To have a
Yeah.
healthy mom versus a sick mom. And I didn't have a sick mom. And so I never had to go through that with my own, my first family. But
Mhm.
going through it with my sons, it's different. And when you as a child and you had daughters, it's
Mhm.
different. But
Yeah.
boys, they don't emote. And so my kids at 11 and 13, when I was going through the diagnosis, they
Wow.
really pushed me away because that's what happens when people are afraid. They can
Right.
push people away out of fear. And my kids didn't have the language to say, "Mom, I'm so afraid that you're gonna die that I don't wanna get close to you. I'd rather get
Mm.
close to dad because I'm so afraid that you're not gonna be in my life. You're not gonna be my mom."
Yeah.
And so they
Oof.
can't say that to me, but that's how they were reacting. And I'm, sick and I'm trying to take care of them and I'm frustrated because that's my job and I can't do it. And so you have all this stuff that's going on within a family, which we really show in the movie. But we also
Mm.
show the healing in the movie, where the end of the movie, the family is whole again. You can go through a
Mm.
lot of chaos and illness, but people can still remain whole. Relationships can be stable again. And so I think that's a
Well,
theme that is important to talk about because often we talk about, the patient, but we don't talk about the family relationships.
oh gosh, I really love that. I love that you brought that up and that you built it into the movie. I mean, it's the reality for one, but I love how it ties together with what you were talking about, allowing yourself to go from pain and fear to courage and hope again, and then watching also the family sort of go through this same transformation of being able to use that to know each other better, to understand each other's fears and each other's pains, because it does affect the whole family, and to see each other in our courage and our willingness to show up and to be able to love each other, and get through it together in our individual ways, but also together as a family unit. I think that's really, just really beautiful, and that absolutely echoes my experience. My daughters did lean in, but still, they had a lot that they were dealing with on their own also that they couldn't bring to me because I was not well,
Yeah.
and so finding places for them to even get support or feel supported is really important, and we have a ton of family, but not everybody does. I think stories like this are really impactful, especially for people that might feel like they're alone or maybe they don't have a lot of family they can go to at least recognize what's happening within themselves and then maybe, start those conversations. I feel like that's what it did for my mom and I. It allowed us to start a conversation that even we hadn't really had together, right? So,
Yeah.
I
That's good.
really love that.
Yeah, well, the
Yeah.
movie is definitely not the formula that Hollywood has portrayed. It's a different version of cancer in film. It's a hopeful ending. It doesn't start with a diagnosis and end in a funeral, which a lot of them do. It starts with a diagnosis and ends in survivorship and hope and beauty. And
Mhm.
so I think that's a really important message right now. I mean, there's people I don't I guess I don't wanna call it an epidemic in the world, breast cancer, but it sure feels like it,
Yeah, it
and I
does.
have no idea why, but it sure feels like there's people getting diagnosed every day, every I mean, it
Yeah.
feels so bizarre to me. I don't even know how to explain it.
I could echo that. It does feel that way, and of course, it's the world we live in, and so we see it close up, but I would say that I have felt a little shift there, and it also
Yeah,
just young women. I feel like there's
young women,
a
young women.
lot more. young women. And so I just think that the awareness and the support is so critical. I know you use the term hope facilitator, and I love it. I haven't heard that before, but I absolutely love it. I'm curious how you birthed that and kind of what that means to you as you walk through the world right now.
Well, I think that originally when I started to talk about my story, I called myself the cancer disruptor, and I still do. And I was trying
Mhm.
to disrupt the shame of illness, the shame
Oh,
of
yeah.
cancer, the shame of, not having a chest. And that whole, space needed to be disrupted. I was disrupting and changing the modeling space. Here was a woman who had a concave chest modeling for Victoria's Secret. That was a disruption. And so disruption
Yeah.
doesn't mean bad, it just means different. And so I was trying to disrupt a lot of different spaces, and I think it worked, and I'm obviously still doing it. I'm trying to disrupt the movie space as well. But I think that, as I sat into, okay, I'm right. Why did I write a book? Why did I want the book to be a film? Why do I speak so much about storytelling and cancer? And I think the whole mission is to be a hope facilitator. Every single
Mm,
day I wake up, I try to give hope to whomever, whether I'm sitting in a doctor's appointment, 12 or 13 years after my diagnosis, dealing with the collateral damage to my body from 28 rounds of chemo, which I have a lot. I lost 3 teeth, which people don't talk about enough.
yeah.
Chemo can damage your teeth. I have a liver issue. I have a heart issue from all the chemo.
Wow.
And so I try to be a hope facilitator in those day-to-day activities. I try to be a hope facilitator online. I try to be a hope facilitator in the choices I make in the jobs that I've decided to take on. And so it's really kind of my underlying goal is to show hope every day and
Mhm,
courage, right? Because we can borrow other
mhm.
people's courage. Like
Mm,
if people see me on the runway in a bikini at 50 in Miami Swim Week with a concave chest, maybe they're not gonna wear the baggy shirt. Maybe they're gonna be like, no, I'm
mhm.
excited about my body. I'm whole, right? I'm beautiful. I'm whole.
Oh, yes. Okay, that might be the best example for borrowing courage that I have ever heard. That is such a beautiful term, first of all. Borrow courage, borrow faith, borrow courage. What did I
Yeah.
say? I mixed up a couple of words together, but to have
Yeah.
you frame it in that way, absolutely, right? It does give us sort of that permission slip to be like, "Oh, yeah, why can't I do that? Of course I could do that," right? And of course it might feel really weird at first, but also, what a beautiful example of borrowing courage. I love that phrase. Okay, you're
Well, you
full of them.
Well, you lend courage to people, right? That's why you do your podcast. That's why you do what you do. You're lending courage, and you're also
Mhm,
amplifying stories. You're a
mhm.
storyteller, and you're also shedding light on dense breasts and the importance of that knowledge. And so you're a disruptor too.
That's a good term for it too. I love that. Yeah, we're not going down quietly, that I can tell you. And the more people that we can have feeling empowered and strong, and courageous and beautiful, the better. You mentioned something I think that's really important. Many people have this perception that like after treatment, you either gonna disappear into the rest of your life where maybe you're not well. So you're just sort of expected to just keep
Yep.
disappearing because now you're
Totally.
sick, right? Or, there's this sense of like, "Oh, you're fine, you're back to normal, treatment's over, look at you, you're still young and vibrant," but I don't think either of those scenarios are totally accurate. It's true for
Yes.
some people, but you touch on something that's actually more common is that we're trying to live with it, right? There are other side effects that people aren't really noticing or talking about, the other things that are gonna be with you forever. So, yes, your intense time of treatment is completed, but the living with it is what you do now. And the way you do that and the way you've navigated that, I think, is also a good example of, how to do that so we can all borrow some of that courage. Um, and know that, like, yeah, sometimes you are gonna have these things that you will still have to understand and treat and work with your body with, but it doesn't necessarily stop you from doing what you love and finding a way to enjoy and love your life and your body while you're at it, and so this is just how that looked for you. Um
Yeah.
And so I would like to shift gears a little bit because writing a book is a big endeavor. Creating a movie, I can't even like, my brain can't fathom, my brain wants to explode just thinking about it, so this was new territory for you. I mean, never mind, like, getting back on the runway, now you're creating a film. So I know that there's certainly a good amount of drive in you. You are creating all the time, you're speaking, you're up on stages. You're a brilliant woman who has a lot to contribute to the world, clearly in purpose driven, heart led, soul filled work. And so I'm just wondering what I don't want to direct your answer here, but I'm just curious, like how you got to that point, right? Or what maybe advice you would have for somebody that's like trying to get their game back, right? Like get their game back on.
Um, I work every day.
Mhm.
I don't quit. I when I went back to modeling, my modeling agency said no. So I found
Mm.
somebody else who would say yes. When I had terrible chemo brain and had doctors tell me that, they weren't really sure that there was a thing called chemo brain, I went back to
Oof.
school. I applied to Harvard University, and I went back to school to fix my brain. And the first semester that I was in Harvard, I read we well, I first of all, I went back to Harvard, to go to get a master's in literature, right? That was a crazy goal because that's
Wow.
all reading, all cognitive focused reading. And the first semester, I decided to do pass fail because I knew that I was gonna barely make it. I would
Mm.
read the same page over and over and over again. And then I'd drive to go pick up my kids from school, and I would couldn't if somebody else wasn't driving on the road, I forgot what side of the road to drive on. That's
Mm.
how bad my chemo brain was. But
Wow.
I applied to Harvard. I got through Harvard. I have a master's degree from Harvard. I probably worked harder than anybody at Harvard because my cognitive abilities were suffering. But that's the character of somebody that can get a movie made. Like, you don't
Mhm.
quit. You just keep going, and it's hard. And every single semester, I was like, "Why am I doing this?" But
Mm.
every single semester that I accomplished, my cognitive abilities got so much better. And I would go in for doctor's appointment where they would do these tests on cognitive reasoning and all these things, and I would be exemplary. And they'd say, "What are you
Mm.
doing at home?" I'd be like, "I'm studying. I'm going to school at night, I'm working during the day, and I'm correcting this. I'm not going to
Mm.
depend on medical doctors who may or may not believe that I actually have something."
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
I kinda took it into my own hands. It's same as the film. And so
Uh,
many people said, "No, we don't need another sicklet film. We don't need female-led films right now. We want male-led films." And I was like,
mm.
"Yeah, but you don't know me very well.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get this made." And I had no idea how. I had no idea how I was gonna go model for Victoria's Secret or anybody else when my modeling agency said no. I had no idea,
Right.
but I figured it out. There's
Mm.
always a different path. And if you have the faith and the courage to do it, other doors will open. But if
Mm.
you stop because a door is shut, it's always a no.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay.
So
You
written
are
great,
full of
written
them.
great,
This is so good.
written great.
Wow. Okay, well, tell me what is next for you and Hello Beautiful.
So Hello Beautiful came out at the Beverly Hills Film Festival April 1st of 2025, and
Wow.
we won Best Film. And
Congratulations. That is huge.
it was it
That
was
is amazing. I've got chills.
It was incredible. We won the Golden Palm Award, which is the best film, and we went on from that,
Wow.
and we won 7 other awards at different festivals around the world. We won 3 in Italy, we've won the rest in the United States. And so
That's
now
amazing.
Thank you. I mean, it's been quite a journey. I mean, more
Yeah.
doors closed than I could ever explain on this podcast, but you keep going. And so we are now, we're out on the market looking for distribution, and
Mm.
we're, waiting for the right person to take it to the whole world. So,
Oh, yes.
yeah,
Oh,
it's exciting.
yes.
Very
That is
exciting.
exciting. I mean, you got it this far, so the faith
Oh, yeah,
says that it's going to keep going, right? It
exactly.
will happen. I live by that mantra as well, like, somehow I got this far with it, so the fact that it must be meant to continue says a lot, and I have to sometimes remind myself of that, yes,
It's
there are a lot
scary.
of no's, but those just aren't the right ones, that
That's
what
good
do they
self.
say? Every rejection is your protection or something like that
Yeah,
feels true.
yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah. Well, I love that. I have no doubt that this is
Yeah,
going to be in the hands of the best
the right
distributor for this
right.
story because it's an important one and a meaningful movie, I think, to be out in the world. It's going to help a lot of people, but also just be great to watch, right? So we need that too. We need to have that escape and something that creates more connection rather than more division, I think is really important. Anything we can do to help support the effort, happy to be a part of that journey and celebrate you and cheer you on in every single way.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, of course. I'm excited for this. I'm excited for you. I know what a big deal it is to get something out into the world, and I just really want to commend you
Thank
for
you.
getting it this far. And I love the name of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah. Well, when you see the final scene, you'll know why it is named that. And also, it takes an army to do anything like that, and I'm not doing
yeah.
it. I have an army of women who are behind me saying, "I believe in
Mhm.
you. I'm helping you," because it doesn't
Yeah.
one person, we could never accomplish this. And so
Uh,
it
yep.
really is it's collaboration. Competition is out, collaboration is in, and
Yeah.
women showing up for each other and elevating each other is always a good idea.
Absolutely. I believe that to my core. Uh, we may have the same message, but it comes out and reaches different people. And
And
like I
different
said, more voices in the choir, the better.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love this so much. Is there anything that you would like to leave with our listeners before we go?
I mean, I say this probably too much, but grace is a muscle, and so often
Mm,
we give everybody else grace, but not always ourselves. So give yourself just a bunch of grace and remind
oh,
yourself of
yeah.
that. You know, life
Yeah.
is not simple. It's not easy, and you going into the world is hard. So just give yourself a little bit of grace.
Oh, I love that. I don't think that's something we can hear too often. That's a reminder I think we need a lot of in the world to give ourselves grace. Then it makes it possible for us to extend it to other people. Um, so I thank you. I thank you for that. Christine, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to share your journey and your film with as many people as we can. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.